Hi, my name's Patricia Walsh, and this conversation is to prepare you for your session in deep memory process. I'm going to describe to you what a session is like, the common things that happen during a session, and how to prepare for your session. In the beginning, when you come for your session, I'm going to encourage you to, if you want, take notes, and also any questions that might occur to you, feel free to write them down and bring them to your session. When you do come for your session, the first thing that we're going to do is take time to talk, and I'm going to interview you about your life, what are the concerns, what's bringing you to the session, and out of that we will decide what particular issue we're going to focus on, and from that use that particular issue and go either into past life or present life content. I'll run you through a particular story and I'll describe that in a moment, what that's like to experience that. And then after the session, after you've had your experiential part of the session. So generally when people come for past life work, they already understand that they've had past lives. Either they take it literally or metaphorically, but they're engaged and open to the process. What I like to describe to you is that your inner characters have lives of their own. If you believe in past lives or not, your inner character does. So what happens when you set up an appointment to come to a session, your inner character is already activated. Now, when I say inner character, I'm talking about a past life self, or I'm talking about a present life self that may be a child self that contains a certain fear or a certain phobia and a particular complex or issue. So when your past life self is what we call triggered, this can bring up certain fears, it can bring up a want to cancel your session, it can bring up aversions, and there's three common things that most people feel. One of them is that I'm going to do it wrong. I'm going to be the only person on the planet that doesn't know how to regress. Well, that's very common, and I just want to let you know that that's normal. That's normal to have that fear. The second is when people do engage in the process, they then want to, or they then tend to say, I'm just making this up. And I do have to say that when you first start this process, it does feel like that to your conscious mind. The subconscious mind is a true believer. So it doesn't really matter as long as you can release enough into the process to allow it to happen and then make your criticisms later. The conscious mind has been used to running the show and likes to kind of keep that control, and that's usual. The other one is, I'm not going to get anything. I'll be, again, the only person on the planet that doesn't have any past life memories. This is untrue. So I just want to let you know coming into it that these are common fears. Past life characters hold particular charges for us. They often hold the energy of an issue or a complex. For example, somebody who is afraid of public speaking, which is a very common one, may be fine talking with friends and family, but as soon as there's a crowd of people that this person may want to go and speak to, an abject fear may arise that's out of the ordinary. This is often where we know that there's deeper content than just the current life. So public speaking, as I said, is very common. A person may go and try to speak before a crowd, and the fear may be very intense. Can feel flashes of shame, blanking out, not knowing what to say, feeling dissociated, feeling anxious. These are all kinds of things that arise, what commonly called stage fright. Within that charge, within those issues, there's a voice of the inner character. What happens in those circumstances is that you're actually feeling the inner character, but you don't know the story yet. In this work, what I do is we work from that particular affect that's arising, that particular fear, that phobia, that thought, and we jump back to the past to find out what it is that's happened with this particular past life self. In the example that I was just talking to you about, what can commonly happen is the person is standing in front of a crowd and about to be condemned to death. It may be a public hanging, it may be an execution, it may be a burning. This is, human history is full of these sorts of actualities, and many of our past life selves have experienced such traumatic deaths. So what what you might do is explore when you're in the fear of, I'm going to be speaking to this dinner club and I'm terrified. If you start to ask yourself, what is it that you're terrified about, no matter how irrational the fear is, and that's kind of the key, is letting the irrational fear arise. When you let the irrational fear arise, it has a voice that's very different than your own. It has thoughts that may be different than your current life. And the thought may be something like, they're going to kill me. I won't survive. Now, that's not common if you're going to speak at a dinner club, that they're actually going to jump up and chop off your head. But the inner character within you does believe that. And that's what we do in this work. We want to go back and trace fears, phobias, issues, complexes, even somatic problems, even body pains, illnesses, chronic problems, trace them back to their roots. By going back in and reliving the inner character, this is one part of the healing. Some people often think that past life therapy is about going in, knowing what happened with your character, and then you're over with it. Well, deep memory process is a little different than that. The healing that we want to happen, we want it to happen on all of the different levels of the subtle bodies, the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, and the physical. So I'll describe to you how that happens in the work. So what I'd like to describe is when a past life character first emerges, what that's like. I'd like to use the analogy of going to a movie theater. When you go to a movie theater, you walk into the theater, people are eating popcorn, nothing's really come on the screen yet, so your awareness is in the movie theater knowing that there's a film about to come on. The film comes on, and you start to watch that, you start to get more involved in the characters on the screen. The people crunching the popcorn next to you are a little less interesting. In our process, the next stage is to become one of those characters on the screen. At that point, and it's true when you go to see movies, the more involved you do get in even watching the characters, the less you're aware of what's going on around you. And that's very much what it's like when you experience a regression session. Your present-day consciousness does not disappear, it does not go away, but it recedes in the background. And this is often comforting for some people because they're afraid there's a certain idea that if I go into a trance, I lose my present-day consciousness. That isn't what happens. So this is a good thing, but at the same time, it can also interfere. So what I ask you to do is when you enter this process is just to know your conscious mind may be present, and that's the conscious mind part, we call it your present-day self, that is receded into the background as the character starts to arise, but also maybe making running commentary. That part of you may be going, well, I'm just making this up, or, oh, this is all just my imagination, which is a common thing. Without getting into the philosophical questions of what is imagination, because nobody really knows that, I do want to say that culturally and societally, we have demeaned the whole right brain intuitive function of our mind in favor of the logical and the linear. And this is not a holistic view. This is not a healthy view. And we find a lot of illness and sickness in society because it's unable to embrace the irrational, the intuitive, the fiction, the image-based part of our own minds, which is typically aligned with the right brain. So in this process, we really are engaging that part, and which means that the part that's been running the show, the logical, the linear, the rational, A equals B equals C equals D, has to kind of sit on the side for a while, and that's okay. It can do that for an hour or two, and then later on come in and make analysis. So when you first come into a past life character, I'll guide you, as I said, once we identify what the particular issue is that you've come to work on, I'll guide you using that, the affect that's arising from that past life character back into a story. And when past life stories arise, or when you first come into past life characters, it's not like you have a complete biographical history. It's more like you first emerge in a scene or a particular situation. It may be a charged scene, there may be a lot going on, it may be nothing going on, it may be a woman standing in a field. And as I get you to start to focus on the character, you start to become aware of yourself as this past life self, more information, more thoughts, more feelings arise. I work with you simultaneously on all of the levels of the past life character self, just like your present life self. You're not just an image. You have thoughts, you have feelings, you have body sensations, and that's going on every moment in your life. Well, it's the same with our past life selves. So, woman in the field might be standing there, and as you first drop into that character and become aware of yourself as woman in the field, I might say to you, what are you thinking? And you'll become aware, oh, he's left me. And all of a sudden, emotions might start to come. You might start to feel wistful. You might start to feel sad. And then as you start to, again, become more of the character, the storyline of the character emerges. Now, when your subconscious, what I call, drops a past life story into your conscious mind, it's kind of like a DVD or TiVo, either one that you want to look at. We go from scene to scene. The whole story is there, you just don't know it yet. So what I do is I'll move you forward and backward in the story when we're in the past life character. So the woman in the field might say something like, oh, he's gone, and there may be emotion that arises, crying, feeling lonely, lost. I then, at that point, can either move you forward or backward. Most likely in that case, I would ask you to go back to the last time you saw him. Then we would learn what is the nature of, who is he? What is the nature of your relationship? And as we do that more and more through the story, it may not make sense to you in the beginning, but it does make sense to you once the complete past life has been re-experienced. Now, re-experiencing the past life is only part of the healing. It's necessary to wake up these past life characters, to bring their stories to life. At the same time, this work is very much based on the modern principles of trauma therapy. And so we know in trauma theory, what happens is that when we have particular traumatic events happen to us, be it everything from lost lovers to dying in fires or battlefields in past lives, these parts of us stay frozen. These parts of us hold a lot of potential, a lot of energy that becomes frozen in the past. So going back into a past life character to re-experience the traumas, the shutdowns, the incomplete desires, all of the things that the character was unable to do, this past life self, is part of the healing. It opens up, it warms up, it wakes up the complex, it brings it to consciousness.